Hello, everybody. Welcome to Getting in Trouble with John Theodore, episode 2. So for right now, this is a weekly series where I talk with pretty much anyone. Fans of the channel, other folks who want to come on. Starting this as a new thing, we'll see how it grows. Today, we've got Dylan Patterson, Dylan TPA from Twitch, on the call with us. Dylan, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. Finally gonna be back online Friday.
Good deal. So Dylan has decided not to do video on this. That's gonna happen. We'll do video sometimes, not video. Others, no judgment either way. What we want to hear is your thoughts on things. We want to get to know you a little bit better. And just have fun talking about stuff that honestly, when I'm in the heat of battle at a track like Bristol or something like that, that we don't really have that much time to get into in depth, and on a more
Pretty
equal
much.
platform where you've got that you can shout back at me if I say something stupid, and rather than me just being able to talk over people in chat because I'm the only one with a microphone. So, we wanted to start. You and I talked a little bit about product, different. Let me see. Topics that we might want to discuss, and. So let me see. Actually, real quick, because I have to do my own production stuff here. Let me let's see. I've got to clean boxed, background color. Let me see. Why is it so here? Here we go. Right off the start, you guys are getting inside info. So I've got the chat box up this time, and I'm trying to get it working. But the let me see. So there we go. Always show messages on. How can I get the source chatter, font settings, visual settings? I've got here. I'm just gonna bring OBS. I'm gonna bring the settings over here so you guys can see what I'm playing around with. I want to have chat on the screen because as chat was a major participant when we did this last week with Firefighter.
Yeah, I got Twitch open so I can see the chat.
Yeah, but the problem is that it's completely transparent background. Okay. So what we have to do then is we just have to, so there's no background color, it looks like, that's available in that for the OBS version of the chat. So we're just going to have to peel this down a little bit, or actually we can just do, let me see, what can we put?
Speaking of Firefighter.
Black background. What we can do for right now is this. We're going to get really just super old school.
That works.
We're just going to put a background behind the chat window. So
that's not a bad idea. That works.
We're gonna just nope, not that big. Let's see. So yeah, folks in the comment session, I apologize that I am an amateur streamer and not super pro, as I should be, but I'm not. Let's be real. I'm still learning this as I go.
You're getting
there. We go. So we're gonna have that background over there. We're going to have this browser window a little bit smaller. You guys can see my desktop. It looks messy. But the whole idea is that we have a web browser open in case we get into discussions that require some form of fact checking, we've got that. So, I could use MS Paint for it, but I figured using another browser would be good. Yeah, we got Aggie back there. He'll hang out for a bit. You never know. We never know. He usually comes down and hangs out with me at the start of the stream, and then goes upstairs and sleeps. It's a great dog. I like it when he's down here, but I don't know how you guys put up with. He can only put up with me talking for like 30 minutes. So.
Yeah, I didn't even notice he was back until Jaron pointed it out.
Mm-hmm. Demi says MS Paint. That's what he does when he's streaming on a potty break. Okay, so first topic that we wanted to start with was talking about rules packages and the future of NASCAR in general, because that hasn't been talked about enough in the NASCAR community lately.
It really hasn't.
And all the political viewers just left. So, I'm going to let you go first. What do the new rules package is rumored to be coming as early as 2021, although now there are apparently some rumors that it might be coming in 2022 rather than 2021. What are you looking for to see out of the new rules package?
I mean, the whole issue with the Gen 7 car is just how low it is to the ground. Like, it's way too aero dependent now, where, these big name teams, I'm not going to say they're too dominant, because in any sport you're going to have those teams that are dominant. That's just how it is. But they shouldn't be able to pull away to these 8-10 second leads at these mile-and-a-half tracks where none of the other teams can do anything, and the cars don't adapt during the races like they used to. And you don't have the comers and goers. It's one car dominating the whole race. I mean, raise them off the ground. Don't rely so much on aero. Rely on the mechanical grip like the Gen 4 car did. And the Gen 7 car, it's not... The car itself isn't bad. It's more the rules package that we've had the past 3 years. Go back to 2014. 2014 had good racing.
See, I don't agree with that, honestly. I think that personally, like every package has the capability of producing good racing.
Right.
I felt like 2014 had exactly the same problems with what we're seeing this year, to be honest. Like if 2014 has a great highlight reel, and some seasons have better highlight reels than other seasons do. But I remember distinctly actually getting so riled up about one of the finishes to one of the races in 2014 that I felt like really put on display the problem with the package. And I forget whether it was Kevin Harvick chasing Denny Hamlin or Hamlin chasing Harvick. I think it was Harvick chasing Hamlin.
Oh, where they couldn't run the same line?
Yeah, so Harvick was running a different line and running Hamlin down, just chipping out time over and over and over again. He was just chipping away. He was knocking off 0.2 of a second lap every time. I think he was running the low line. And what happened? Well, camera just went out of focus. All right. Something on it. Sorry. I just realized that the webcam got completely out of focus. So I think that there might have been a speck of dust or something, or it's focused on... Anyway, I don't know what's going on with that. That's weird. It's never done that before. Dude, come on, camera. Pull it in real close and then get it back away. Let's see if it can refocus. There we go. That fixed it. So, anyway. This show Beast Racing, by the way, technical difficulties with John Theodore. That's going to be the new name. Where he was chopping down the lead. Boom. 0.2 of a second lap. And then what happens on the last lap? Hamlin just moved over in front of Harvick's line and stalled out his. And it was like Harvick was still several car lengths back. And Hamlin, just by moving over to the line, even though it was not the faster line for Hamlin to be running, was able to stall out Harvick's process completely. You had good racing on the restarts, just like you have with this year's package, just like you had with the 2015 package, just like you had with the 2016 package, and just like you had with 2017 and 2018. Restarts are going to be exciting when all the cars are super easy to drive on new tires. And they've made them more exciting by making them easier to drive, because the drivers, when they're flat out like a go-kart, they can literally just go anywhere they want. They can just put the car, have the confidence that it's going to stick, not worry about the thing getting loose and out of shape. And any driver who has any business being in the Cup Series in NASCAR had better be able to hold a line in one of these cars. So you can get 4 or 5 wide easily in these things, because every single one of them can hold a line. They're not bouncing around. They're pretty stuck. Amateurs like me on iRacing, yeah, I might clip the apron, get loose, and wreck half the field. Those guys had better not do that, otherwise they really don't deserve their seat. As easy as these cars are to drive. So with the 2014 package, you have the same aero dependence, because when you have a splitter on the car, and when you have a big wing on the thing, that's going to create a lot of aerodynamic dependence, because the design of the car is using aerodynamics for a huge portion of the grip. Also, you're generally going to have a lot of aerodynamic dependence whenever the cars run this fast. And I mean, I go back, you said, if it's all right, you said you were 18 before you started this, and I want to.
Yep.
That's important for me, because I don't exactly know the legalities of having minors on an internet show where I'm making money for it.
Yeah, better safe than sorry.
Exactly. So I don't want to do anything that would put this at risk. Everyone who comes on here with the understanding that I make money from the channel, and that they're going to be on publicly for my thing. So anyway, the aerodynamic dependence has been a thing, honestly, since I've been watching the sport. They didn't used to talk about it as much, or the announcers didn't used to talk about it with the level of sophistication that they do now. But I remember in 1998 when they introduced the 5 and 5 rule, which, for those of you who don't remember, NASCAR put a rule in place in 1998 to try to address issues with aero push, aero tightness, and aerodynamic dependence, as the teams had become more sophisticated at getting the cars lower and lower to the ground, which is always the goal that the teams want. The teams, their interest in maximizing the speed for their car, there are, in simple terms, a relatively limited number of ways in which racing teams can make a car go faster. You can add horsepower, decrease curb weight, lower the center of gravity of the vehicle, reduce aerodynamic drag, increase aerodynamic downforce. There are a few others, but if you just want to take your car and just get more speed out of the car that you have, before you go into tweaks and fine-tuning in a setup for driver balance and driver comfort and things like that, more horsepower, less weight, lower to the ground, less drag, more downforce. That's the thing. Everything else is, that's what the teams are trying to do. So if NASCAR is helping the teams out by saying, okay, we're going to clamp horsepower. Okay, well, you just took one of the things that teams would normally spend money on to gain an advantage over other teams away from the team. So, okay, so they can't, it used to be that Robert Yates, I remember Junior Johnson back in the day, back in the late 80s, early 90s, used to have a huge advantage because he would bring more horsepower to the track. And then it was Robert Yates who would just bring more horsepower to the track every week. Those cars would just have more horsepower. So NASCAR's taken that away. We're going to put a tapered spacer on there. Engines are not going to be able to produce more than 550 horsepower no matter how much you trim them out. All right, fine. Okay, so they're going to produce 550 horsepower. And then NASCAR teams used to be able to play with the rear spoiler. They used to be able to adjust it upwards and downwards. That was gaining aerodynamic downforce while sacrificing drag. Well, NASCAR said, nope, we're not going to let you mess with that. It's going to be here or here or here, wherever it is. But NASCAR said you're not going to be able to play with that. They took another tool away, and it was kind of meaningless when NASCAR took it away from them, because at that point it had gotten to the point where teams were trimming their cars out so finely that everyone was basically just laying that spoiler down flat anyway. So it didn't really matter that they were able to adjust, and that's kind of my point when I see folks make the argument of, no, just go back to the open rule book and it'll be just like the old times. It won't. I hate to break it to you, but it won't. What it will be is it will look very similar to what it is now, where it's pretty bad racing, or it'll look more similar probably to what it was last year, which was pretty bad racing, where the cars have difficulty driving side by side with each other. It's difficult to pass, and you get a parade. Why? Because everyone's going to end up running the same package no matter what. Eventually, one team or a couple teams will, the different teams through research and development will hit on optimal packages. They will hit on an optimized way of doing things, and then everyone will copy that, and everyone will be running. It will turn into a spec racing series that is not spec'd out for good racing and good competition, but is rather spec'd out for cars to run very fast by themselves. That's what you're going to get if you go to an open rulebook series. Now, and it's also going to be monumentally expensive too. The cost, because all it goes down to, open rulebook basically just means whoever spends the most money is going to win. So you're going to, that's a big part of why Formula One is so much more expensive than every other series, because Formula One still maintains one of the more open rulebooks. The cost to compete in Formula One is insane because of how big the research and development budgets are. So, that was really long-winded response to about the 2014 package, which again, 2014, if I remember, it was high drag, but it was like 900 horsepower. More nice. Thanks for the biddies, man. I don't have the alerts and everything on for this show, just because it's a different kind of format. This
2014
is more
had
for YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, 14 had the high horsepower and high downforce.
Mm-hmm. Right, now remember that. I remember when they went to that, and I was like, your work, when they went to that higher downforce in 2014, I remember thinking exactly this, which is, you're working on the wrong part of the car.
Yeah.
You know,
needed a lower downforce.
So I was a huge fan of the idea of the car of tomorrow, of designing a car.
Speaking of the car, look at that I put in that 2011 NS with Gordon and battling.
Yeah.
Those cars are sideways coming out that last corner. He's got his car completely sideways. You can't get that anymore.
Yeah, and see this. Okay, this is back in 2012, 2011 at Atlanta.
2011, that one was, yeah.
And
I mean, that's probably. I mean, besides Chicagoland last year, that's probably one of the best finishes we've had at a mile and a half in a really long time.
Yeah, no, I mean
Is
we
that
actually had a
Atlanta
couple
finish?
of good finish. Once we hit the summer and the heat came up, and we got a little
Yeah,
bit better. The cars started getting a little bit looser on the hotter tracks, and that even David Land will admit that the racing that the NASCAR racing gets better when the track temp goes up.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. He's very critical, and he does.
you know,
Yeah,
he, yeah, he admitted recently that NASCAR gets better when track temp goes up. These cars
mm-hmm.
were so when the car of tomorrow first came out back in 2007. I, as a NASCAR fan, was excited because
Yeah,
we were NASCAR. I was appreciative that in the wake of the tragic loss of Dale Earnhardt, one of their biggest stars, that we finally NASCAR was taking a proactive approach to safety rather than a reactive approach. Prior to that point, in the time that I had been watching, NASCAR basically didn't do anything for safety until something happened, and then they would make one change to address that specific thing. So, for the biggest example, the most obvious example of that was we had three big incidents in 1993 where cars got turned around backwards, lifted up, and flipped over. I think we actually have four.
yep.
There was Rusty Wallace at Daytona. There was Rusty Wallace at Talladega. There was also Jimmy Horton's wreck, I think, at Talladega was also in 93 where he flipped over the wall. And there was Neil Bonnet at Talladega in the fall race. In direct response to that, NASCAR made a safety change to the cars in one specific area. They added roof flaps that when the car got around backwards and lifted up, it would set the car back down. Those roof flaps were a whole lot smaller than the ones that they have on the cars today. The roof flaps they have now are huge. Blowovers are basically a thing of the past. The only way that you still get a blowover now is if the cars actually, we saw it with, I'm going to switch over to the video, the Jamie McMurray Talladega flip is kind of the
Yeah,
only way that you can get a blowover in today's NASCAR cars, which is when the car kind of gets sideways and another car is actually pushing it to overcome the aerodynamic force that the aerodynamic downforce that is generated by the roof flaps pushing down. Um,
roof flaps were after Dale's crash, I believe, after the Dagger one.
no, the roof flaps were put in at the start of '94, and then they added. They have
Oh yeah,
gradually
96. Yeah,
gotten bigger. Dale Earnhart's big Talladega rollover was
96
in
was the crash.
1996, and that wasn't a blowover type rollover. That one was
He was
one
put.
which you still have happen today sometimes, which is where the car actually turns over the other direction. Um, it was actually very similar to it's similar type of deal to what happened to him at the at Daytona in 1997. It's where the car turns nose first towards the wall and rolls over. I mean, that one was actually it was just force of impact. The car got up and rolled. Terrifying. It's just it's hard watching these ones from back in the day when they were hitting a
Yeah,
concrete wall. I've gotten so used to seeing cars hit safer barriers. Um, that which when a car hits a safer barrier, it looks visibly softer. Uh, Going back after watching cars hit safer barriers for so long and seeing them hit concrete walls, it's just grinding to watch. It looks just visually so much more severe, the type of impact. So
yeah.
I was really happy
Concrete walls cars just stop.
that, yeah, exactly, and that's what you don't want in a car
Yep.
crash. So the safer barriers were a big thing. A lot of the safety changes that they made for the car tomorrow I really liked because they actually built impact absorption. The safer barriers are awesome when a driver hits a wall, but that same safety absorption doesn't help if in the incidence of a car to car contact. Zach Campbell said roof flaps were 94 because NASCAR did a recirculate test at Charlotte after Benson's flip at Michigan. I'd forgotten about Benson's flip at Michigan.
Yeah.
Teams were so adverse to that decision that development of the roof flap started with Jack Roush in late '93. Nice. Thank you for that update. I didn't have my facts fully correct on that. Robert Kubica crash in 2007. So there were actually two things Alpine trades. It was Kubic's crash in 2007. There were other
Yeah, I don't.
there were
I don't
other
think I've
ones.
seen that F1 crash.
There were other crashes that so this one was another terrifying crash. This actually I don't think was fully related to why they did the halo. It was the Massa getting hit with the spring that really started made them Felipe Massa getting hit in the head with a spring off of another
Yeah,
driver's car was the main
halo in
reason
that
why.
crash right there is not going to help.
Yeah. Now, it could help. Obviously, Kubica was fortunate that it didn't create a situation, but they already had a roll bar and things so that the the driver was relatively well protected at that stage, and by the way that they had constructed the Formula One cars, that if the car rolled over, it was unlikely that their head was going to come in contact with the ground. The halo was more designed to protect drivers from flying debris. And honestly, it seems to be doing its job. There were a couple, and from other cars getting on top. I don't know how much Jules Bianchi's crash had to do with the halo. I think that the big change that came out of that crash, which was a very sad situation, was that they put in different procedures governing whether or not how they would put out a safety car when there was emergency equipment anywhere inside of the barriers. Jaron, can you post that link again and I'll pull it up?
Yeah,
I missed it.
I think Jared really wants you to see that link.
Yeah. So, but back to the original point I was trying to make with the car tomorrow is that the safety measures were great because even if you're hitting safer barriers, you still need something to protect drivers in the instance of a car-to-car crash. The problem was that they brought in a whole bunch of stuff like the splitter and like the goofy-looking wing that they ripped off of some touring car from the 80s that no one asked for and put that on there.
The wing basically took away the purpose of the roof flaps too.
The ring, it didn't eliminate the purpose of the roof flaps. What it did do is it kind of stalled them out, and it generated lift when it made it much more difficult for the roof flaps to do their job because it changed the way that air flowed when the car got backwards. And we started seeing blowover flips again for a while before NASCAR finally figured out that not only is this thing ugly, but it's actually going against what we wanted, which was driver safety. Why they didn't wind tunnel test it better, I have no idea. But
yeah,
the splitter, the addition of the splitter with the car of tomorrow is still a massive problem that NASCAR has been trying to address since. And I haven't seen a good explanation for why NASCAR instituted the spoiler in the first place. Jaron, great clip, by the way. This is the 2005 Coca-Cola 600. I'm just going to go to what I think is, the part we really want to see, which is the tail end of this race. So look at how high, first off, I want to point out, I want to go back to just that clip of these cars running down the straightaway. Look at how much, you can actually see how much space there is between the track and the front air dam. Back before they had the splitter. You can see the cars bouncing. That communicates speed to the viewing audience. And then, of course, you have the fantastic finish with, Jimmy Johnson making the move on Bobby Labonte. But having that travel in the suspension as the cars are going very fast. The car tomorrow was initially designed with a spoiler. Zach Campbell bringing the heat, man.
With the wing or the spoiler?
This is the original car tomorrow with the spoiler. Apparently they added the wing to it. It's still got that hideous-looking splitter. And I don't know. I've never understood why they decided to go with this cutout area under there. I think they thought that it might provide a way for air to get to the this is only a 5-minute video. Okay. So I think it might they thought that it might provide a way for air that was disturbed by the leading car to get to the nose of the trailing car and allow for front downforce because the splitter would be so low. It didn't work. All it did was increase aero dependence.
Exactly.
And look, this is another just purely cosmetic and visual thing, but personally, I think that cars made of sheet metal look visually more interesting when they crash and bend and crush, and it's I don't watch racing for wrecks, but the reality is that crashes are a big part of the dramatic interest for racing. It's a big part of where racing gets casual appeal. Our fireworks are the sensational looking crashes that happen that just happen out of the natural course of competition when you have a lot of highly skilled drivers competing at high speeds in cars that are difficult to drive. The drivers haven't gotten any better than they were back in 2005, appreciably.
Right.
The top drivers at the time then were extremely... Now, there are some ways in which the game has gotten more sophisticated, as games will do. Chess has evolved throughout history and become markedly more sophisticated over the last couple hundred years than it was before. As human beings play games and they learn about these things and build upon existing knowledge, they do get more sophisticated and nuanced. But as far as raw driving talent, Richard Petty and David Pearson, Dale Earnhardt, Bobby Allison, Darrell Waltrip, Jeff Gordon, Rusty Wallace, Cale Yarborough, all these guys had raw driving ability and the ability to handle a car that the current drivers, that Kyle Busch has, that Kevin Harvick has, that Jimmy Johnson, what made these cars interesting to watch was that the cars themselves, and when you go back even earlier in the sport, you go back to the start of the 1992 these cars back in the day, a big part of what made them appealing was that they were imperfect. It's really, really compelling, and what's always been compelling for me about watching NASCAR is watching really talented racing car drivers with a whole lot of skill and ability drive cars that are
Mm.
not perfect and optimized. If you want to watch super perfect optimized cars, that was IndyCar, that was Formula One. But if you want to watch drivers just manhandle the heck out of relatively rudimentary machinery, that was NASCAR. That was the appeal, is that they didn't drive super well, and the driver had a lot to make up for. Obviously, better equipment was better, but it was really compelling to watch drivers who were really good at what they did drive through and overcome the imperfections of the vehicles that they were driving. As the cars have become more as the cars have become more scienced out, some of that the romanticism with watching it has gone away from it. Look up Dale's 2001. It it all it didn't become corporate, Demi. It's been. I hate to break it to you, man. NASCAR has been corporate since the '60s.
Pretty much.
Since STP slapped their logo on Richard Petty's car, NASCAR's been corporate. It's become more corporate as television exposure's gotten better, as the sport became more popular and it started became gain mass appeal and gain a wider audience. It became more corporate. But the reality is, NASCAR has always been extremely corporate. You've got Mellow Yellow on Kyle Petty's car here. You've got Texaco Haviland on Davey Allison's car there. You've got Quaker State on Brett Bodine's car that's sitting in a wreck. You've got Budweiser sitting on Bill Elliott's. These are corporate sponsors in 1992. It's always been corporate. And it's always required a whole lot of money to do it. The what's changed over time is that the biggest teams have gotten a whole lot better at really, especially since they started being able to machine custom parts in-house. They used to work within margins of a quarter inch or a half inch or something like that. Now they're getting down to the thousandths of an inch, and it's just so scienced out. The cars are so perfect. I think that the direction NASCAR needs to go, I have two different ideas about how they could go. One would be more, neither of them are really open rule book, but I think that both would be interesting to watch. One would be going the IROC direction, which is, let's make it completely spec'd. And the way that you make it a completely spec series is you design a car with the rules package. I don't think that was Dale Putnam, by the way. I think that was when in those old days, if you got really close down, you'd take so much air off the rear spoiler of the car on the inside that they would get loose and go around. I think that had more to do with that than, I mean, Dale being right up behind him helped further take away the air. But so put in a rules package that mandates shocks that have travel.
2 inches from the
Don't
ground.
don't let teams coil bind these setups and seal these cars right down to the ground. Get
Yep.
rid of let's see, Dale Earnhardt. I'm just gonna pull this one up.
I mean, even the car tomorrow. I mean, those cars aren't sealed off.
They were pretty sealed off back then. The only reason they weren't sealed off is that they still had ride height rules.
Right.
But yeah, you can see that there's a gap here. The car's got some body roll. So but you can tell that it's got body roll because the left front is higher than the right front. So that means that the body has rolled um, over the right side. Uh, so you also had back in the day with these cars, you did have more of a rolled body style. The body was more curved. So one of the other consequences that you had with the car of tomorrow when it came in, it had a real streamlined um, and flat side panels. So what almost immediately, and this is why I always say it's like I've seen what happens when you open up certain areas of the rule book for teams to do, is that you end up with teams taking advantage of those rules and doing things that we as fans really don't like. So I think 2009 Texas NASCAR. Let me just see if this ends up being what I want to see. Let's see if we can get a shot straight on as the cars are coming down the straightaway. But what ended up happening in the Roush cars, Carl Edwards ended up being really good, and the Roush cars were really dominant this time because they had done it better than everyone else. But they figured out how to skew the thing out so that it was actually crab walking down the straightaways. And again, we got, especially with the HD screens that we've got now, we fans aren't dumb. We're not blind. We can see when a car is crab walking sideways down the straightaway.
I don't understand why the rules are allow that.
Well, the reason the rules allowed that is that there was no, it had never been a thing before. NASCAR hadn't had to deal with teams skewing the cars to one side to create side force in the corners, which is why they did that. If you think about the way that, I've got actually a little die-cast example right here that I can use. If you're going through a corner, and if you can get the side of the car skewed out so that you're kind of, we talk about all the time wanting to drive off the right rear in the corners. There are two reasons for that. One is it's fun. And two is that, that's why we, but the other thing is that if you've got that rear end hanging out and you're going like this, you've got air hitting the side of the car, applying downforce, giving you more side force and grip so that the car is able to maintain a higher roll speed through the center of the corner. There we go. So I'm going to put the Carl Edwards finish for 2005 on in the background while I continue talking about this. But so that's why the team started doing that, is that with these flatter sides, the teams were able to generate a lot more side force by skewing it out. And NASCAR restricted the rule book in some ways, so they started looking for other ways to gain an advantage. That's what's going to happen. Anytime you open up the rule book, teams are going to do things that will make their car faster, because all the teams care about is that their car's faster. So again, I think you can fix a lot of this stuff by mandating spring and shock components that will not allow the cars to ride on the bump stops, that will force them to have suspension travel. Get rid of the splitter, go back to an air dam, and use that to make it so that the teams can't just seal the cars off going down the straightaways. And I think that'll be a lot. The Twisted Sister cars were these ones actually right here. These were the Twisted Sister. They got even more twisted as development continued on them, because this body style was run in what was then the Nationwide series for a lot longer after the Cup cars switched over to the Car Tomorrow design. That's just an example of, so if we as fans don't want that, and I kind of don't like it either. I think it looks goofy for the cars to look asymmetrical. I think it looks fine for
It
sprint
is.
cars. It is kind of odd for a bunch of folks who really like dirt racing to complain about these cars looking asymmetrical. Have you seen a sprint car lately? Have you? Those things aren't symmetrical at all.
Not at all.
But these cars that are supposed to be, roughly modeled on what a real car looks like, having them symmetrical kind of makes sense because your street car is a symmetrical one. So, mandate that the cars are symmetrical. That's especially with the laser scanning system. NASCAR is in a better position to mandate that the cars are built so that they're aerodynamically symmetrical than they've ever been. Mandate the suspension parts, put the air dam on there, go back to a reasonable sized spoiler. And you know what? Look, I really don't care, but a lot of fans seem to. So, have the bodies be based on what the manufacturer's design. Dak will take care. So, have, because I really don't. At this point, the whole win on Sunday, sell on Monday thing, it's just not a thing. I don't really think
Right.
that.
But I mean, NASCAR is supposed to be a stock car series.
Right. So,
As you were saying with the symmetrical thing, at least make the bodies look stock. They
yeah,
don't.
I'm fine.
I mean,
I'd be
the
fine
front,
with
the
that.
front end does.
And I do think that these cars look a lot better than when they were all identical and they were just changing the decals on them.
Oh yeah. That I agree with.
So,
Um,
yeah.
I agree with what Renton said.
What Rent said?
Everything he said right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
Softer
for the
tire
sets with jump stops
compounds,
over the
raise
height.
the horsepower. So again, I do have to bring up
Yep.
because there are always unfortunate and boring reasons for why things are being done. The reason why Leader Sim Sadie, what's going on? Normally this isn't just chatting. Normally this is an iRacing deal, and there's more chat interaction. The reason why, as I understand it, why they're going to lower horsepower has nothing to do with competition. It's because of cost, and the pressure
Yep.
for that is coming from there are a number of directions where the pressure is coming from. Part of it might be the race team alliance because the teams have gotten together and they're using their collective bargaining power to try to reduce cost for themselves. That might be some of it. As I understand it, the bigger reasons are that the manufacturers don't. It's not relevant to Ford and Chevy and Toyota to develop V8 engines specifically for NASCAR that have a ton of horsepower when none of their manufactured cars use anything that's using remotely similar technology anymore. So, if you want more horsepower, we're going to have to go to electric motors. That's just some kind of hybrid thing. That's just a fact. You got to if you want the manufacturers to invest a bunch of money in engine development, you're going to have to let them go in a direction that's actually relevant with the direction that automotive technology is going. And that's hybrids and eventually full electric motors. If you're cool with that, I'm cool with that. Personally, I like pushrod V8 engines in NASCAR, and I kind of view NASCAR right now more as a pure sport rather than a display of automotive technology. So I'd kind of rather see them keep running pushrod V8s and just make it a standard pushrod V8. Get rid of the fuel injection, go back to carburetors, have them run these imperfect things, but just don't take the engine development away from the teams. Have NASCAR develop a spec engine that everyone uses that produces the same horsepower, and the teams drop that in, whether it's 600, 750 horsepower or whatever. Have NASCAR contract with someone, find a way to financially make it work, and then the teams buy the engines from NASCAR at cost, at no profit to NASCAR. No, just make uh, take Roush 8 engines and have them be the engine supplier for all of NASCAR, because it's a
Right.
sport. And which this is kind of, all of this is leading towards what my other solution is, which is I'm calling it the bucket of bolts solution, which is embrace and lean into the idea that NASCAR is a team sport, that it's not just about the drivers, that this really is a team sport.
Which it is.
Right. So this is the bucket of bolts solution, which is that you make it a reality show. Every team has a limited size. Let's call it 20 guys or 30 guys, 35 guys, whatever. They've got 30 guys that are mechanics, the driver, the crew chief, team manager, whatnot. On Monday, they get a bucket of parts from NASCAR. That bucket of parts stays in their race shop, and they've got cameras on the shop at all times. They have to assemble the car that they're going to race on Sunday from the bucket of parts that they get on Monday. We have cameras, so throughout the week we're checking in Big Brother style and watching all the drama and all the different fights and things, and all of the crew guys talking about what the other guys on the other shop are doing in the dirt. All of that. We got all that entertainment and stuff to talk about throughout the week. All that different stuff. Friday, they show up the track with the cars that they assembled from the bucket of parts that they had. They practice, they tweak them, they qualify, they race, and then if that car survived, okay, then maybe you can use that again next week, or maybe not. Maybe we just like, okay, that car's done. NASCAR is going to auction off pieces of it to fans, and we're going to tear them all down, recycle the parts. Everyone gets a new bucket of parts on Monday, and the process repeats. You got to build them to spec. You got to, where NASCAR is going to measure them with lasers, but the teams only have to measure them with slide rules. So actually force the teams to, because that's what NASCAR fans like. NASCAR fans like the romanticism of, Smokey Unit getting in there and lining that thing up with a slide rule, right? So make them do that.
Exactly.
Make them do that. Make that part of the rules, that you don't get to manufacture parts that fit exactly right. I think that'd be actually really entertaining to watch.
That would be entertaining. And doing that, I mean, they'd get rid of the competition gap. You'd really see who the better drivers are, what teams have the better mechanics, even if they don't have the money.
Exactly, because you just make it a set cost. Let's say that,
Yeah.
because your costs are personnel and the bucket of parts. All the equipment's got to be pretty much standard for the race shop. And so, you can set the cost to compete at, $750,000, maybe $1 million for a season or something like that, theoretically, with that type of series. Obviously, they still have you've got to make sure that the cars are safe. So that's why you have rules in place that respect the safety advancements that have been made, and it actually allows NASCAR to continue tweaking and working on safety advancements, but it makes it a full team competition that's transparent and open to everyone. I think that would actually be a really good way to go. I think that would be interesting for a lot of. It would definitely get the gearheads, I think, more interested in it, because it also makes it accessible, because fans watching that can look at that and see, hey, that's maybe something that I can actually, throw a team, join a team, or get together a team and try to compete. And I think it would be cool to see that on all three series.
Yeah.
So that's my idea on how to
I mean,
fix NASCAR.
I mean, I'd be all for that. That's almost like implementing a salary cap without a true salary cap.
Exactly. And
It's
a salary
it's
cap
not
would be
limited to how much.
salary caps would
Um,
be really difficult to enforce in
yeah,
NASCAR because
NASCAR it would be.
there's a lot more than just salary involved. There are so many ways, and the thing is that there's so
Mhm.
much secrecy right now with how race teams are run and how racing's always been run in general. Um, NASCAR also needs to stop hiding purse size and attendance sizes from the reports. Have
Oh
they been
God,
doing
yes.
that? I didn't realize that they were doing that this year. I always thought that those were fairly transparent. I didn't realize that. That is a it's look, secrecy is always a bad look. It always makes it look like you've got something to hide.
Yep.
Um,
Um, yeah. I mean, the thing with the salary cap in NASCAR, I mean, that's not going to happen. But with what you just said, it basically be a salary cap, but you're not limited. The teams would be limited for parts, yes, but they're not going to be limited to how much they can spend for, like what they can pay drivers, what they can pay on research, um, how much they can spend. I mean, on their facilities, but they're still. I mean, they still have the same limits as every other team for parts, engines. I mean, and then even with the lower horsepower, as long as the downforce and the aero package goes well with it, the horsepower doesn't. I mean, honestly, doesn't matter too much. You can have a 400 horsepower car that's still difficult to drive and
that's
still produces good
2012.
racing. What are you drinking? That's funny.
I'm drinking. It's a citywide pale ale. It's a local beer here in St. Louis. It's got the St. Louis flag. For those of you who don't know, that is the St. Louis flag. That is the city flag of St. Louis with the fleur de lis.
Have they really not released attendance? I mean, they've released TV ratings, obviously, but have
Let
they
me
not
see.
released attendance?
The decision was made previously for NASCAR to not reveal how much drivers and teams make during the events. I
I did not
didn't
know that, Ray.
realize that. This is back in 2016.
That's.
That's
I probably
bizarre.
saw that and just forgot
First
about it.
weekend is speed weeks in
That's
the books. Bigger says
crazy. Still
safety,
not racing from
coincidences,
Mexico.
charters. One more thing that will become
Wow.
less transparent this year is purse money. NASCAR will no longer disclose how much money teams earn in a given race. That was negotiated as part of the charter deal. In terms of NASCAR and the teams, the charter system appears to be a big win for the sport, but in terms of transparency for the fans, not disclosing purse money is a step backward. That's really weird because that was always one of the things that was, again, going back to you need a certain level of romanticism and mythology to sell your product. And one of the things that, whether it was real or whether it was fictionalized, but the idea that, hey, they're out there racing for $1 million. They're going after that halfway bonus money. And I remember Darrell Waltrip would always be talked about as he's going to get up on that wheel when there's money on the line, which
No, that is not
That's the
true.
Waltrips.
Yeah.
If there's money, they will do pretty much anything you ask them, including say nice things about the 2019 package.
Darrell
I don't want to
Waltrip
dig at the
literally,
Waltrips too much, especially with
yeah.
Darrell Waltrip
No.
apparently retiring soon, which I think is a good move. I don't want to drag his name, but it's been hard to watch, man. Year after progressively year after year after year, particularly this year. It's just I had a lot of respect for the guy. I want to see him retire gracefully. It's become a little tough to watch him on the broadcast uh, recently. So that's all I'll say on that. But yeah, the Waltrips have always been great salesmen, and they will do just about anything for a buck, or but that was one of the things was that putting up the prize money and talking about the idea that you've got these 40 guys who are going for a big prize, and again, kind of selling the idea that hey, you average fans sitting on the couch, if you were good enough, you could go out here and try to run for some prize money too. It's the same appeal that the World Series of Poker has. The idea that some average guy sitting on the couch right now watching the World Series of Poker next year could be at the final table. Obviously, the odds of that happening are about the same as they're slightly better because there's actually a chance of that happening versus one of us sitting in our basements on iRacing having a shot at the big prize at the Daytona 500. Because there is some chance, however small, of making it to the final table of the World Series of Poker. If you were able to scrape together $10,000 that you can afford to lose for the entry fee. So yeah, it's possible. It's slightly more possible than the Daytona 500 dream. Demi, is that the was that the year that the tires were just going all were just blowing all over the place? Yeah, so Hoosier tires, I don't know if they were. I remember watching that recently. That there was talk at the time because I think Neil Bonnet was running Hoosiers that some people put that on the tires, but the NASCAR was pretty quick to I think tamp that down. So I'm not sure how much truth there was in that. But the reality is tire wars are never good for racing or safety because they incent you don't it comes down to incentives, and you don't want to incentivize the tire manufacturer compromising safety for speed, and that's what tire wars do. We don't need someone to come in and challenge Goodyear. Absolutely not. Tire wars are terrible for racing. It was in 1994.
Yeah, didn't they just release a documentary on that too?
There was, yeah, there might have been something about that. But yeah, we don't need tire wars. We absolutely don't need that. Goodyear, I think, Goodyear takes a ton of flack, but I actually did, and again, I'm going to take a controversial position here, even though I don't think it should be. Goodyear does a fantastic job at week in, week out, bringing a tire that fails very rarely. Generally speaking, tires fail as a result of teams running camber outside of Goodyear's recommendations. Why don't they do the two-tower thing like the IndyCar does? They tried that at the All-Star race a few years ago, and it didn't work. It's just, especially now where it's pretty rare. Cautions have become, more rare. Every team's going to run the hard compound on a long run, and every team's going to run the soft compound on a short run. It actually didn't. It actually made it not. It didn't. I just don't think that it would. I'm open to trying it, honestly, but I just don't think that it would do much. Okay, I think we've gone pretty far on this. Let's see. Let's switch over to because we wanted to talk about the league that wasn't for a little bit, and then we're gonna move on to our super controversial thing where I'm really gonna get in trouble on online censorship. So the league that wasn't, which because I want to be transparent about my reasons for why it didn't happen, which was largely just overcommitment. I just want to make sure that I've got the air cleared on that because I don't feel like I ever gave you an adequate explanation for why I didn't follow through with it. But basically, uh, you hit me up last year, wanting to run a league in the off season, and because I always talk about how much I love running the K&N car and how much I like it. Um, so you wanted to run an It's Water I Swear League, which was
Right.
using my brand and logo, basically, And at the time, I was thinking that if my name's going to be associated with this, I can't not be a part of it because it's my name that's the face of the thing, and was going to be a huge driver in terms of recruitment. And we did actually get a whole lot of folks signed up. I think that the league's
There's like 80 something or 70 something
we
registered.
had I was blown away. I'm still I continue to be surprised by how much popularity my my stream, my channel that I have as a personality within the iRacing community. But it was the It's Water I Swear K&N series. You were the league admin, but it was using my branding. We got a whole lot of signups and a lot of good folks. It would have been a super fun league to do. Yeah, I don't know that there are pages of members on here. But so what ended up happening is one big thing that happened was that with Podium Esports doing their 2 winter qualification series that I ended up participating in both of those, Dynasty Racing League running a K&N winter series that I was a part of. I with 3 different leagues going, I just didn't have time in the schedule through my week to do a 4th league. Also, I got really invested in the Dynasty Racing League Cup Series as that league was winding down because I was in the playoff battle and ended up making it all the way to Homestead. So all of my
Right.
off-stream time was going into focusing on practicing for the next week's race to try to do what I could to make it into that championship race, which left no time for working with you on we never even held a single planning meeting to really talk about what we would need to do to actually start getting things kicked off. Um, so that covers my end of why it didn't happen. Did you have anything additional that you wanted to add to that, or ask me about in regards to that league?
Um, well, my whole issue with it was like, I mean, I did want to get it running, but pretty much like right as I had, um, right as I started getting the registration, I just kind of went away from iRacing for a bit. Like I just had some stuff going on,
Mm-hmm.
and like I wasn't on iRacing for I think 3 months.
Right.
Um,
It's going to make it difficult to run a league when you're not
that
on the
that was
service.
the main issue on that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that
That
makes
I mean
sense.
that was the main issue with that. I just wasn't on it for a bit. I didn't have time for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So that's one of the things that I've learned, and you guys who've watched me for a while will see me turn down league invites, turn down team invites pretty regularly. And this league was actually a teachable moment for me in terms of that, which is I try to not commit to anything that I don't know for sure that I can follow. So it's not I'm not going to
right.
commit to something that I'm thinking, well, I'm pretty sure I think I might be able to follow through on this. It's like I'm not gonna commit to something unless I know for sure that I can actually follow through with that commitment now. And this was really a part of that, which was that Dylan asked me, hey, can I use your logo for that to do it. And the thing is that I would probably be more open to doing it now, but I either want to be in and running it or just handing it off purely as a league sponsorship thing would be one or the other. Um, I mean, I'm going to be, you guys have seen and talked about it. I feel like that the 3 leagues that I'm running right now are a little bit more than I can fully focus on. I could maybe I'm thinking that going forward, I may be able to commit to 1 league, if that. Just because there are always other things that I would be interested in doing. I wanted to run the full endurance calendar this year. I wanted to run all the majors. I haven't been able to do that because the leagues are taking up so much time that I
Right.
don't have any time to practice. And Daytona, I put in a good bit of time to practice. Bathurst ended up not happening largely because I didn't practice for it hardly at all leading up to it. And I didn't feel right going in there and running a car that I was uncomfortable with and potentially ruining someone else's race that they had done the proper amount of preparation for. So that's the long and short of it. We talked a little bit about some other ideas and things in terms of doing a league, and I might be cool and interested in sponsoring a series. But that's kind of where it comes down to. I have seen a little bit behind the curtain of what it's like running a league. I've got enough to do with running my channel and running running my races. I am not in any way trying to bring on the headache on myself of being a league admin or race control in a league and dealing with all of the headaches that go along with that. Maybe at some point after I hang up the skeleton gloves, that might be a thing, but not not right now at least. It's a lot to deal with. If you want to invite that headache, we can talk about deal where I sponsor the league in some capacity or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would still want to run it. I mean, the only league that I really try to, I mean, like I'm in a couple leagues, but I'm not really committed to those. I just run them when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Except for Podium. Even Podium though, I've missed the last 5 weeks because I've been busy and having. I mean, I've had computer issues the last 3 of those weeks, and can't even run them. It's like
Yeah. Well, podiums, they've all been. I've just been having bad luck. Last year I actually did pretty
yeah.
well in all my leagues by avoiding a lot of trouble, and this year it seems like my car, all of that trouble that I avoided last year has been. Apparently, I just withdrew from the luck bank too many times, and now I'm paying my dues this year because it's just they're finding me this year in ways that they didn't last year. But it's fun.
Yeah,
I like I like the whole storyline. I like the idea of running for a points championship and running for points and having that build week over week and running with the same guys week in, week out. That's a lot of fun. Racing 36er says he's got endurance feed waiting for me. We'll see. I've got a team that I'm loosely affiliated with that I run the endurance stuff with. That's Black Eagle Racing. And there's other stuff going on that I'm not going to talk about right now, but there might be announcements later. I'll just leave it at that. It's always good to leave things dangling. Just sprinkle that out there. Not talking about anything official yet. Nothing's official until it's official. That's for life. I do a lot of things where I talk about it as it applies to racing, but it really is true for life in general. The think before you send it thing is a great example of that. Think before you send it is great advice in racing, despite the number of times where they tell you to just send it in there. Okay, that's fine. That works for Daniel Ricciardo. If you're not Danny Rick, if you're not that good, if you're not at that level yet, just sending it probably is not a good idea. It's probably going to get your car wrecked, someone else's car wrecked, make people mad at you, and leave you at the end of the night. If we're all honest, at the end of the night, if you wrecked someone or wrecked yourself or did something silly that caused a wreck, you're probably not feeling real good about yourself for the entire rest of the night. So, good advice in racing is to think before sending it in there. Make sure that make sure that hole's actually there. Make sure that you can really hold it in there and make that pass. Sure, sometimes last lap there might be times where you go ahead and try for it, but thinking about it first. It's also good advice for life, particularly on, let's say, Twitter. Maybe after you've typed something out, just taking that extra second, whether it's Twitter, whether it's a text message to your boyfriend or girlfriend or one of your friends or someone that you're in a political debate with or something like that. You type something out that you think is really super clever. Before you hit that send button, think just for a second about whether or not you actually want to send whatever it is you've written. Because once you pushed that, there is no taking it back. It is out there. If it's a text message, you can't delete it. If it's on Twitter, you can delete it, but people can screenshot it. Once it's out there, it's out there. So the think before you send it thing, streamlabs.com/John_A_Theodore/hashtag/merch, link in the description below. It's not just for racing. It is it is life advice.
It really is.
Think before you push that send button. I think that's a good segue into our next topic, which this is going to be the real meat and potatoes political topic of the night, which is online censorship, or speech censorship in general, the First Amendment, what it really means, what censorship is and what it isn't, and where First Amendment rights apply and where they don't. So I'm gonna kick this off specifically because one of where I see this come up a lot, particularly, is with it does happen on both sides, but where I see it a lot is with right-wing political figures like Ben Shapiro or shock jocks like Milo Yiannopoulos and stuff like that, complaining that their speech is being censored when Berkeley doesn't, quote-unquote, does not allow them to come speak at their campus after pressure from student groups. And my response to that is that the First Amendment protects you and protects your right to speak your mind and say whatever you want, with a couple caveats, those being direct threats of violence or things like the common example of shouting fire in a crowded theater that actually could put people's lives in danger because it causes a stampede as people run out in panic to get away from a fire that isn't actually there. It protects your right to say pretty much whatever you want and speak your mind without fear of government retribution. It was specifically designed in the context of people who had been living under a monarch who, the English monarchy, the British monarchy, one of the things that, depending on who the king was known for was, if you said something that he didn't like, he could punish you up to literally lopping your head off and separating your head from your neck. So putting that protection in that one of the agreements, one of the things that we as citizens were going to get out of this new government that had been formed, this new experiment that was going to be tried, was that we would be able to criticize our government as much as we want without fear of retribution. It does not say that the University of California, Berkeley has a requirement to pay you to come say whatever you want to their students. And that's what Ben Shapiro and Milo Yiannopoulos are really complaining about when they complain about their speeches being canceled, is they charge universities a lot of money in speaking fees. Those same speaking fees, remember, that Hillary Clinton was very severely criticized for by me, who is a Bernie Sanders supporter, and by a lot of other folks as well. And I think that it was fair grounds to criticize her for the money that she took. But Ben Shapiro, I'm just going to see if we can look up just Ben Shapiro as one example. While I'm doing that, do you have anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the whole thing with that. I mean, if a college doesn't want someone being there, so what? Like, the college is paying them. They're not paying the college to come speak there.
Right.
So those campuses have every right to turn someone away. I mean, whether the students want them to or not, I mean that college board has every right to it. I mean and with the First Amendment, like
just gonna blow this up so that people can actually see it. Is speaking
money gets involved, it just when money gets involved with just with public speaking in general, I mean that does. But as far as just freedom of speech in general, I mean,
I just zoomed in on it. Sorry to jump in, but I've found it.
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro's speaking fee is $50,000 to $100,000 per speech. The First Amendment does not require that anyone pay Ben Shapiro $50,000 to $100,000 to speak. If Ben Shapiro wants to set up his own thing and for free speak his mind in a public square, the government cannot say anything against it. The University of California, Berkeley can't say anything to stop it. People who disagree with his speech are free to show up at the same venue or close by and say that they disagree with what he's saying, but they can't actually use force, violence, to prevent him from speaking his mind on a public forum. But no one else, none of us are required to reward him financially for what he's saying, because that would be a violation of our right to freedom of speech. Responding to a couple things in chat, Emperor J says Bernie needs to release his tax returns and not go on Fox News. I agree that he needs to release his tax returns. He said he was going to do it. As a Bernie supporter, I agree that he should. I think that, as he says, they're likely to be pretty boring, but I agree. He's said it. That should be the standard for all presidents. He absolutely should do it. I have full confidence that he will. And not go on Fox News, I disagree with that. I think it's pretty awesome that Bernie's going into the Lion's Den. I agree that Fox News is not a journalistic outlet with any integrity. I think that they are a propaganda machine, but I don't think that anyone who is running for president and taking that seriously, when you run for president, you are running to represent all citizens in the United States, even the ones that disagree with you politically. So I do think that if Fox News wants to have a town hall and ask Bernie a lot of tough questions, I think it's to his credit that he's going to go on there and answer those tough questions. I think that other candidates. Here's what I do think on that is that and I said this back when the town hall started, because there were a number of presidential candidates that announced, and then Kamala Harris, I always get it wrong. I think it's Kamala. She announced, and CNN gave her a town hall almost immediately after. And she was the Warner Media Group was the top contributor to her, I think it was her 2018 senatorial campaign. And she was the first one that got a town hall. I thought that was pretty problematic for me. And then the next one who got a town hall was Howard Schultz, and the next one who got a town hall was Amy Klobuchar. It was pretty obvious the direction that CNN was going. And then they gave one to Bernie, which, you say, well, but hey, they gave one to Bernie, and he's more progressive than on the left. Yeah, but Bernie's also, unlike 2016, Bernie is now extremely popular and can drive ratings. So I think that there was still a financial interest in that. I think that we should reinstate the fairness doctrine. And this is exactly the reason that the fairness doctrine used to exist in America, which is that if you are a news organization with any credibility and you are going to offer your platform to someone running for political office, or provide time on your platform for an advocate of a particular issue to speak on that issue, then you should also offer equal time to the other side. Or in this case, if you're going to give a 1-hour town hall to one presidential candidate, then you need to give that 1-hour town hall to all presidential candidates. Maybe there needs to be some restrictions for who gets a town hall in terms of, number of donors to the campaign, or, position in the polling and things like that, because there are a limited number of days in the year. But if you're asking, to be quite honest, with most of what is on these 24-hour news networks day after day after day, with the political pundit shows and things like that, they would be doing better programming and providing more useful discourse to the national debate if they were hosting town halls for each individual candidate that is running, versus what they're doing right now. Cringe Carnival, I'm a Taurus. So, 1 in 12 shot. Dylan, you got anything to add? He said he would sub if we're the same zodiac sign. No way to police it. Too many media platforms now compared to when fairness doctrine was in place. I think that there would be a way to do it theoretically. Now, part of the other thing that did make the fairness doctrine complicated, and where they had justification in terms of the FCC regulating it, is that at the time, all television and radio was being transmitted over public airwaves that were owned by the public. Therefore, the federal government had jurisdiction in regulating what was transmitted over those airwaves on behalf of the public, because that was a public good that was being owned. That is no longer the case when the information is being transmitted over wires that are owned by private companies and not publicly owned. So it does make it a little bit more complicated in that regard, and I'll add that caveat. I'm not saying that there's absolutely no way to regulate it, but it definitely makes the question of regulation more difficult when all of the infrastructure being used to transmit the information is not is privately owned rather than publicly owned. So I will add that caveat. I'm not necessarily sure that the fairness doctrine is the solution, but I do think that we as citizens should put pressure on these networks. And I'm saying this as a Bernie Sanders supporter. If Fox News is going to give Bernie Sanders a town hall, fantastic. They should offer one to Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke, Amy Klobuchar, not Joe Biden, because Joe Biden hasn't announced. Once Joe Biden's announced, they should offer one to him. They should offer that to every single one of the Democratic candidates, not just the one that they want to attack for being a socialist.
That is very true. They, but yeah, like
X-Wolf, I think you're right on that.
I mean,
Cory
he
Booker
has a
too.
good point there.
Yeah, no, I left some names out. There are a lot. Look, there are a lot. It's a crowded field this time around. I left out Hickenlooper as well, and Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang should get. Andrew Yang is going to be on the debate stage. He already hit the required number of donations. I don't know how real his campaign is, how real his chances are of actually winning the thing, but he's definitely a real campaign. The number of donors that he's got is a real number. So Andrew Yang is definitely in there as far as all that goes. So yeah, no, X-Wolf, you're right. The people are very the diversity of media and especially what the internet's brought is a great thing because it allows everyone, even little old me, to have a platform and put my ideas out there. And if people like what I say, if people like my show, if people like my style, if people like watching me, they can find me and they can put up their own channel and respond. And you know, it is in many ways the most democratizing invention that's ever existed. The printing press provided the ability for the first time for one-to-many communication. The internet provides the opportunity for many-to-many communication. It's hugely democratizing. And I do believe that it is extremely important that we keep the internet largely free and unregulated and allow people to speak freely and speak their mind freely. I do think that when but the reality is with these things is that right now the First Amendment isn't the tool that is designed to cover that, because the First Amendment restricts the government from interfering with an individual's right to speak their mind, especially when it comes to criticism of the government. The First Amendment also protects the right of individuals to not listen to speech that they find offensive. You can say things that I find offensive, but I can choose to walk away from the conversation or not listen to you or hang up the phone on you or whatever it is. It protects both sides of speech. So, you know, it protects my ability to, you know, if you've got a television show, you've got a platform, you've got a YouTube channel, you can say whatever you want on that. I'm free to not listen to it. And also, if I create a platform that's my platform, I have the right to control what happens within that platform. So on my platform on Twitch, you want to jump in on that? Or no? Is that background noise? I'm hearing something come. Okay.
Yeah, it was background noise. Sorry.
No, yeah. So, you know, I have rules about how chat's conducted on my channel. On some people's Twitch channels, they'll have rules about not having political speech or speech about religion at all. I don't want to do that on my channel. If they want to do that on their channel, that's fine. I'm not going to criticize them for that at all because it's their space. That's their channel. on my channel, I think that those discussions are important and valuable. So I let people talk about them. The rule that I have is that you got to
Basically, not
maintain a
harassment of others.
certain basic level of respect for one another, for humankind in general, and for to me as the person who runs the channel. Now, if I do something or say something that's offensive or that people feel is wrong or offensive and they want to come back at me for that, I tell my mods, or if I do something on track where I make a mistake and it causes a wreck and people start yelling at me for it, that's fair game. If I make a mistake, I'm totally fine with taking the heat for that. If someone just comes in and starts cussing me out for being a Democrat, sorry, I don't have to listen to that. You can, if you don't
Yep.
like that I'm a Democrat or that I vote for Democratic candidates or that I have liberal views, that's fine. This might not be the channel for you, and I'm okay with that. There are literally thousands of other channels. There are literally hundreds of other iRacing streamers.
Very
Now
true.
Spike's the one who gets away with trolling my channel on a regular basis because he does it out of love, and we all know that.
Like the 10-year flags.
Yep,
I mean,
exactly.
in all fairness, how often does he run street stocks?
Spike is Spike. If Marcio stopped continuing his sub, which he may have because I started streaming at times that weren't good for him, I think. Marcio M was actually my first sub, but if he's no longer active, then Spike is my longest running sub, I think. That's very true.
Oh wow.
And I have not forgotten that. You guys who've been with me since the beginning, who were on that 100 followers car, much love, for sure. I appreciate you guys. And honestly, like that's why I keep coming back. If I'm being real, there are times when the fatigue sets in and burnout, the risk of burnout hits. But whenever the haters get me down, I've got a lot of fans who I got way more people who like my stuff than the few who decide to hit me with hate. So that's cool. But yeah, that was really the main thing that I wanted to say, is that there's a difference between true freedom of speech and private censorship. And what I'll say is, if you don't like YouTube taking down a particular video or the way that YouTube acts independently, use your platform to speak against them. That's the way that we counter it. But I want to make sure that we're trying to have that argument at least in a, or that debate at least in a space where we're being honest about the terms that we're using, because YouTube doesn't have or is not governed by the First Amendment. The First Amendment places a restriction on the government. It does not place a restriction on YouTube. YouTube is governed by the terms of service agreement that most people who signed up for and Twitch the same thing, that most people who signed up for to produce content for the platform probably scrolled right through without reading it too carefully, clicked accept because they were super excited about getting their channel started. And when we sign those agreements, when we digitally sign those agreements, we're all starting out with a channel that is so small that there's not much at stake and we're not risking a whole lot. When we get big enough to get noticed and potentially do things that are subject to censorship according to the rules outlined in the agreement that we signed. Demi, thanks for the sub, man. Appreciate that. it's been so long since we signed the original agreement that it often comes as a surprise that what was said or what was done was actually in violation. Now, the other reality is that, as far as I understand it, there aren't any real sneaky or hitting things. YouTube and Twitch are both pretty transparent about what their agreements are, what they're designed to do, and why. Spike's a major donor to the John A. Theodore pack. He gets favoritism. That's funny. But they're pretty transparent about what their rules are, why the rules are the way that they are, and their enforcement. And they're look, it's good that they're getting pressure, public pressure on these things, because they should be transparent about it. When they deplatform someone, they should be super transparent about why. You know, one of the recent prominent examples was Alex Jones getting deplatformed recently. I think Alex Jones is a kook, and a lot of the stuff that he says should not be listened to, does not deserve to be listened to. I think that some of his ideas are actually dangerous, but my opinion on a lot of that stuff is no reason for him to get banned. And he said a lot of stuff that I found just absolutely appalling for a whole lot of time and didn't get deplatformed. Where he messed up was in making claims on his channel that the parents who lost their children in the Sandy Hook shooting were crisis actors, that they were faking sorrow over losing their children. He actually mocked the manner in which they were grieving publicly, which, okay, to him it may have looked unnatural. He may have been honest in terms of it looking unnatural to him, but if you're in a situation where you've lost your kid and you've got a camera and a microphone in your face, are you really thinking about whether or not your reaction looks or appears natural? I'm sorry, but it's just wrong to spread lies and accuse people who have lost their children to a tragedy of being crisis actors. Average Joe, I did watch the Joe Rogan, Alex Jones episode. That was, I watched it out of morbid curiosity more than anything. That was the most bizarre 3 hours of content I've watched in a very long time.
What was that about?
That was about a month ago, and it was so. But yeah, so and the other thing is that, and the reason why those statements, which were libelous, I believe I've got this correct, where libel is spoken word and slander is written word, or it could be the other way around. Actually, I've got the internet. I should look it up and make sure that I get those words right. Xwolf 5,000 bits. Oh my goodness. Dude, thank you very much. That's amazing, man. Thank you so much for that. That just made my night. Libel definition. Libel is a published false statement damaging to a person, a written defamation. So libel is written slander. So his statements were slanderous. They were spoken statements that were false. And the other component of it, there was one family who has had to move 7 different times because Alex Jones fans were going to their home and harassing them because Alex Jones called them crisis actors on his public platform. Now, the First Amendment does not. It is an open thing right now as to whether or not the First Amendment protects Alex Jones' rights to quote, I put it in air quotes, his right to mock a grieving family that has lost their child to a tragedy. That is a deeply offensive thing to do, but I will grant it's actually being deliberated right now in a lawsuit in a court in Texas where the families of those who lost their children and were slandered in this manner by Alex Jones are suing him. So, as that case is being deliberated, it is an open question as to whether or not the First Amendment applies in terms of being able to restrict whether or not he can actually be punished for saying those things by the government. What is not up for debate is that YouTube is under no obligation because of the First Amendment whatsoever to continue to give him a platform after he says those things on their platform that they own. They are giving him space on their platform, and he is abusing it to do that. They're under no obligation to continue to have a relationship with them after he does that on their platform.
Which
Grim Knight comes with offerings of follow and peach yogurt. Peach. I'm assuming that's peach yogurt, not preach yogurt, unless there's a new flavor. Neither of which you can substitute the thing. Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
it's the thought that counts.
It is the thought that counts. That's very true.
But
do you have something you want to add on that? That's.
Yeah, I mean, legally, can he say that? I mean, technically, yes, but the people going to their houses, I mean, that's...
Now, so there is a difference, and I do want to make this clear.
Mm-hmm.
The people who went to their houses and harassed them are being, as far as I understand, they are being punished individually because that is harassment. That's definitely not protected.
Yeah.
Now, Alex Jones did not directly, and I want to make sure that I'm being as clear as possible and as accurate as I can with this, as I understand the situation. Alex Jones did not direct his followers on his platform to go and harass those people. However,
right.
Alex Jones does bear some responsibility, and I'm not even saying this again, we'll see if he bears legal responsibility for it. That's what's being decided in Texas right now. I'm talking about actual moral, ethical responsibility as a human being. You've got a platform where you have followers who, some of whom are goofy enough that they take your stuff seriously to what I would almost term a religious degree. All right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand that when you make outrageous statements, that your goofiest followers are going to act upon that in the real world. That's a responsibility that you bear as an influencer. If you don't want that double-edged sword part of the thing, then you probably shouldn't be trying to influence and sway people's opinions to the degree that you are. But you got to understand that that's part of the equation. If you want to have a platform and a voice and a lot of influence, you're going to also have to bear the actual moral responsibility. Forget legal responsibility for a second. You do have a moral responsibility for how people are going to interpret and how they're going to act on the things that you say. None of this stuff happens in a vacuum. For me, as an example of that, and a big part of one of the reasons why I do the pledge before every race as a check against myself to make sure that I don't get too upset or blown out of proportion or go off too much on one individual driver or individuals who do stuff that makes me mad in the heat of the moment in a race is I know that I've got a decent following at this point of people who like me and look up to me, and there's a responsibility that goes along with it. The absolute last thing that I would ever want any of my viewers to do is to go into iRacing or onto the forums or onto Facebook or onto Twitter and either intentionally wreck someone who had been in an accident with me or harass them online or send them hateful messages or do anything like that in my name. So as a way of guarding against that, I try to make sure that I temper my own anger and vitriol. And if I've really got an issue with a driver or another someone else online with what happened in iRacing or something else, that I go to them directly and I talk to them about it. I really try as hard as possible to not smear people publicly, and I recognize that even within that, there have been cases where I've fallen short of that, and I'm trying each time I've done it. I'm like, I shouldn't have said that. I wish I hadn't said that. I regret it, and I try to remind myself to do better because, man, at the end of the day, life's too short, and none of us got time for any of that.
Yeah, I should probably start taking the pledge.
Look, the pledge will save you.
Yeah.
If anyone, everyone else is watching. If anyone else decides to start putting into practice what I do, which is to recite that pledge sitting on grid before starting up before the race starts, I promise you this because it will save you from doing stuff that you would have regretted had you done it. And you will be grateful you will be grateful that you did it. Because I can tell you this from experience. The absolute worst thing that you can do, or one of the worst things that you can do on iRacing, is turn a bad race where you're sitting there with a wrecked race car, losing 100 I rating and a chunk of your safety rating, into a 1 week or multi-week ban from the service. All at the end of the day, all you've accomplished, if you take matters in your own hands and decide you're going to wreck that guy out intentionally or spout off, is that you have taken what is already a bad situation. You're sitting there with a wrecked race car in a ruined race, and you have just made it materially worse for yourself.
Yeah, I have not been. I mean, I was just banned from a mystery start. I mean, I have not been banned from potentially wrecking people. I mean, I'll admit. I mean, I'm sure pretty much everyone on iRacing at some point has probably intentionally wrecked someone. I mean, I know I've done it, but I haven't done it without like. There was. I mean, there was one point where I mean, there was a guy on a restart, and or no, it was before the start of the race. He had spun the tires and came up into me and pretty much destroyed my car before the race even started. So I go and I pretty much, I mean, we're only going 50. I spin him out and he taps the wall. Okay. So then he backs up and drives into me, or tries to drive into me, and I slam on the brakes and he runs into the wall and completely ruins his race. Should I have gone back and spun him? Probably not. I mean, I could have easily just, protested him right there for. even if it's not intentional, not being able to control his car and wrecking me on the pace laps.
Right. Which is what Nim and iRacing would prefer you do, because they'll
Exactly.
look at the incident and, if they assess that it's just poor driver skill, it'll be a wake-up call for him. If it's his 10th protest, they'll probably do something about it because the guy's got a pattern at that point. Uh, you know, it, I will definitely say that having a large audience, or any audience watching you, is a great disincentive to do to go back out and actually get your pound of
Yeah.
flesh right there in the moment. Um,
Right.
Most of you guys, no, I'm not drinking water. It's beer tonight, X Wolf. That's what I'm not driving though. I don't think it sets a good example to drive even in a simulator while under the influence of alcohol. I used to back when I was streaming for like an audience of 3 viewers. You go back and watch some of my old ones. I got cans that look just like this that I'm drinking instead of water. I made the switch to water after I got my 1 week ban, which was when I was 2 beers in, upset over something that happened in a truck race, and I stomped on the brakes
Yikes.
and intentionally gave the guys that had been giving me a hard time a black flag at the end of the race. I sat for a week after that. I learned my lesson, and I stopped drinking beer on stream and started drinking water instead. Because I sat and I thought about it and I reflected on it and decided that, you know what, if I'm really going to take this seriously, it's honestly not the best example to be setting, particularly for a younger audience, to be drinking while driving, even in a simulated manner. Um, I don't criticize in any way anyone who does, by the way. It's a personal choice. I personally choose to do things with my channel in one way. I don't in any way think that anyone who chooses to do it differently is wrong or that they're doing it wrong, or I'm not going to criticize them for it. This is how I've come to, through my thought process, that's right for me. Um, the other thing is that there is, so most of you guys who watch me, I've got at this point a reputation for racing pretty clean, and if there's one thing that I'm criticized on consistently, it's maybe racing too clean, if anything. That said, the 2 videos on my YouTube channel that have the most views, one is titled, again, this is because clickbaity stuff works. One's called iRacing Fights, Tempers, Mayhem, and Controversy. It is a situation where I got wrecked and went off on the guy and got into a back and forth with him and just clipped that portion of the fight and the sparring back and forth over that. That one's got like 35,000 views now. Most of my videos have under 1,000. The second most viewed video is the one where I was racing, I think it was at Thompson, and I got spun on the coming out of turn 2 by a lap car that didn't uh, give me enough room coming off the corner as I was lapping him, and I chased him back down, and I ran into his bumper, and then I still dispute that I actually intentionally wrecked him because I didn't go out of his way to wreck him. What I did do is make sure that when he cut down on me in the same way, that time he was the one that paid the price for it rather than me. That has the second most views. I have gotten more hate on that video than I have for any other one, with the possible exception of the one where I said that I thought that Kavanaugh did what Christine Blasey Ford accused him of doing. That's the other one where I got a bunch of hate. Or the other video that I got the most hate for. And after that one, man, I had this one guy who would literally go on every single one of my videos and put MAGA in the comments after that until he eventually
My lord.
went too far and I ended up muting him on the channel. Again, I'm totally cool with you having different political beliefs from me and expressing honest, sincerely held opinions. I'm under no obligation to allow you to spam my platform with nonsense and hate directed at me. I just, if that's what you're gonna do, then, or if that's how you want to use my platform, good luck. Eventually, it's gonna get you banned, and then you can sulk about it and or go complain about how I'm unfair on some other forum or whatever. I don't know what that guy's doing now. I really don't care. um, but yeah, Spike, you're gonna do that now. I'll I'll just do the same thing that I did, which is I just went through and just I got great pleasure out of just deleting it every time he posted it. Bill. That's funny. Bill says, yeah, sorry for the whole MAGA thing on YouTube. I don't drink anymore when I leave comments. Well played, Bill. Well played.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, man, we're up past the 2 hour mark, and can you believe we've been going for 2 hours already?
Right.
Anything more you want to add, or I think we're at a pretty good place to call it here. Miles, how's it going? We've had a pretty good time. I think this has been fun. We didn't get to know too. So I want to make sure that we get to know a little bit about you. So you're 18. Are you still in high school, or are you going to college?
I'm in college now. I was gonna actually major in music production, but the program I'm in, the classes are not advertised as they are. They're not completely hands-on. Like, I mean, I'm bored with the classes I'm taking now, so what I'm actually doing, I'm switching to a general associates, and once I get that, there's a flight school that's like 15 minutes from my house, and that kind of setting you up to where you get enough hours with a school to where you can go right after you're done and apply for major airlines. So I'm gonna end up doing that once I get my associates. But I mean, I still got a year left of that, and then that program's 9 months.
Okay, so sorry, I missed the second part of that. You said you're in music production. The program wasn't as hands-on as you expected it to be. So you're doing what's the other plan that you're on now?
Yeah. So now I'm just getting. Actually, last week I went and switched to a general associates, and there's a flight school that's like 15 minutes from my house, so I'm gonna end up going to that once I get my associates.
Very cool.
So
flight school would be cool. I've always thought that flying would be fun. I have a paralyzing fear of heights when I'm like actually outside, but it doesn't affect me at all inside of a vehicle. I don't like flying for other things. That flying coach triggers my claustrophobia, and I don't really like. And I don't really like airports. But no, being in the cockpit of a plane would be cool.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that.
Awesome. So yeah. Very cool. Any other personal info, tidbits, other interests you want to share while we got you here?
Actually, I'm just curious. Can you pull up your iRating graph real quick? I'm just curious.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been on for how long now?
I am in I've got the 4-year badge, so I've been on since 2015.
Okay, because I mean, I just hit my first year, but I have not had a computer that's very up to par until now. And I mean, I'm finally getting to the point where I'm consistently getting better finishes. But I mean, I was almost back to 2100 until my computer started having issues, and I pretty much got kicked out of 3 races, and now I'm back to 18. But I think that should be fine there, especially next week. Trucks are at Bristol.
So Demi asks who your favorite driver is, by the way. So here's my iRating graph. I started out just under 1,500, dropped precipitously
Yeah,
down
that's what
to
mine
below
was.
1,000, and then
See,
I hit a
mine never
real good
dropped.
streak. So this was a rebalancing. I when I got into iRacing, I had been out of sim racing entirely for several years. You know, it had been a long time since I had played
Right.
NASCAR Racing 2003 season, and I
I've
didn't
never
really
even played
have a
that.
I didn't really have a setup back when I was doing that, and I was only doing that single player, not multiplayer. The only multiplayer sim racing I had
Right.
done was Forza Motorsport, and that was pretty much all on a controller, not with a wheel. So I came in
Hmm. That's how
pretty
it was.
cold, and that's why you see this drop is that it was rough at the beginning. I think that right around where this upward tick happens was so I was also going through some personal stuff. Broke up with a girlfriend that I had been living with for a couple years, and moved back home to St. Louis. And then I got some things figured out and quickly made it up to about 2,000. Rode there for a little bit, and basically what it's been is that my I rating's kind of gone up in like 500 to 1,000 increments, where I'll figure something out, something will click, and I'll get a nice little spike, and then it'll rebalance down, and then I'll spike back. I'll get myself settled down, spike back up again, and then I'll usually be able to hold. There'll be a resistance there where I'm able to sustain and hold at that new level. So you can see that at the 2,000 level, where I finally get over 2,000. I get close to 2,000. There's some resistance there. I get above it, I drop back below it, and then I quickly get up above it, and then it never drops below 2,000 again. Same thing happened at 2,500, where it actually shot up above 3,000, then dropped below 2,500, and then I got right back up. And then once I was able to get over 3,000, I held there and was able to hold consistently. Same thing happened with
Hmm.
3,500. And then recently, as you guys have seen, 4,000 has been really difficult for me to hold on. But I got above there, I dropped below. And then I got back up and dropped below. And then I got above there and I got way above. And then I dropped below. And now I've kind of hit resistance where I'm riding right around that 4,000 level. Um,
Yeah.
so that's how my progression's gone. It's been a 4 year journey. I've learned a lot. If you go back even and watch the video, even just watch the videos from, last year around this time, I feel like I'm driving better than I did back then.
Hmm. I
Clap
mean,
Jr., I have not listened to the Rusty on the Dale Jr. download yet. I intend to. I might actually do that tonight after I sign off here.
oh, whoever was asking your favorite
Maximum One,
driver,
what's up?
mine
Yeah.
was Junior. He retired. I've been following Chase since he was in the K&N car.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly did not even know that he was until he was in the Xfinity series.
Really? So
I had
you were a
I had
Chase Elliott
no
fan
idea he
not
was Bill
knowing
Elliott's son.
You were a Chase Elliott fan not knowing that he was Bill Elliott's kid. That's funny.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
cool.
I loved his driving style. He was winning everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was winning everything, and his personality. I mean, he's very, very just laid back, and he's not an aggressive driver, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's not like he's going to give up a win necessarily. But he's not going to wreck a guy for a win either.
Yeah. Demi, if I ever get a chance, maybe after I get off, check out my race and let you know what you could do better. So, gosh, I've actually started again because time is limited and time is money. Um, I do uh coaching on the side, and I think I might actually have to up that rate. Uh, I don't want to
When do you do
extort
that?
people. It's on demand as people come up. I did a couple sessions with
Oh,
Papa Smurf Hero. Um, I charged him $25 an hour for $25 for a 1 hour session. Uh, the only reason I have to charge is because my time is just so limited.
mm-hmm.
I'm not a full time streamer. I work more than 40 hours a week actually at my full-time job. Fortunately, I work from home, so I don't have the commute on top of that. But I do that, and then I stream, just streaming 20 hours per week. Then there's,
That's a lot.
doing maintenance with the channel, trying to work on other things, and do other stuff like that. So there, I'm trying to get to the point where I think that probably $50 an hour is a realistic price point in terms of hitting an amount where, or an hourly rate that makes it realistic for me to get to a point where I can put together a combination of things that allow me to do this as a full-time job. So I think that that's probably the rate that I'm going to have to start settling at in terms of personal driver coaching. Now, in my spare time, that there may be stuff where I throw a bone to someone and stuff like that. So, uh, you know, if you want me to look at something for free as a favor, shoot me it. There's no guarantee that I'll actually do it though. But
Right.
if we talk and we work out something in terms of an agreement, uh, then maximum line. No, I'm not going to do your homework. Your teacher. Wait, I am definitely not doing your homework after what just happened to
Oh,
after what just happened to the whole bribery. I'm not going to be the next
yeah.
celebrity in cuffs for a cheating scandal. How dare you?
What's up, though, DJ?
Yeah, how's it going, man? See, that's why this is called getting in trouble. Is that you guys come in here and with all the best intentions, you try to get me in trouble.
Pretty
Um,
much.
so yeah, so that's long answer on that. Super not fun. I don't like talking about the money and the business side of things because that's I probably should do some videos because I'm sure that that's interesting to a lot of people who are starting out and stuff like that. It's
I would
it'd be awesome
watch
if I was able to do it
training.
full time, but it's not the main reason that I started doing this. The main reason that I started doing this was I thought it was going to be fun to have an archive of my racing career because I grew up as a kid watching NASCAR. iRacing was fun. I was having fun with it, and having a video, saving the replay files. When you change over a hard drive and stuff, those tend to get lost, and you're not going to go back. Putting the actual videos of my races up on YouTube was a way to have an archive. That way, if a good one ever happened where I got a really good top five for a win, then that would be then I would have the video of it, and that'd be cool. So that's why I started doing it. It's grown into a thing where now it's like I am pulling in some revenue. There's potentially a realistic, there's not. It's not a completely out of this world thing that I might be able to at some point make a full-time deal out of this, but it would require a whole lot more growth. Um, but that's sort of the reality as it. If I am going to get that to that point, which I think a lot of you guys want, I mean, because that a lot of you guys have communicated to me you'd like me to stream more often and do more things. The only way that I can do that is get to a point where I can do this full time and, uh, so that I can spend the 40 hours of a week that I spend earning money doing this instead. Um, Furtive Live, you guys are trouble. So that's the deal on that. That's why the boring is there is an aspect where I do have to start thinking about this like a business and treating it seriously that way, which is new for me.
Pretty much.
Um, so yeah, my tattoos are my race cars. Maximum line. That I don't have any tattoos. My my race cars that have the political paint schemes and stuff like that that fill that same desire to creatively express myself with artwork. The race car, virtual or real, is an extension of me and has all of that stuff that where that it does the same thing that tattoos would do. So yeah. Whew. All right. Anything else you want to hit before we call it? Because we're at 2:20. We're almost up to 2.5 hours here.
Yeah, I think it's about good.
All right, man. Well, Dylan, really appreciate you being on. Sorry again for flaking out on the league, or at least my part of that.
I kind of went AWOL on it too.
Yeah. So hopefully, it would be cool to sync on something like that in the future. So maybe we'll be able to talk and work something like that out in the future. But thank you again. It has truly been a pleasure hanging out and chatting with you. USA Firearms. If John didn't have his race cars paint, he would have a Corey Bush tattoo on his bicep. I don't know if I would. I might. I'm a huge believer in Corey. I don't know if I would have a Corey Bush tattoo or the Bernie Sanders hair with the glasses or something like that. I don't know. That's part of the thing.
How
is
much
that
did it cost your son?
I don't. I don't know. I've never. I have no idea what symbol or what thing. The idea of doing a permanent mark that's on my flesh that's there forever. It's like, I get why other people do it. I've just never had that impulse. So yeah. But yeah, thank you, Dylan, very much, man. This has been a pleasure. Yeah. If Shouts 37, if iRacing would advertise to a wider range of people, it would allow their content creators to expand further. I never even heard about iRacing until I saw a random YouTube video in my recommended. Yeah. No, but look, so iRacing is expanding. I like to think that, my videos are maybe a small part of expanding their reach and stuff like that. I know that I've had a few people come into my channel who said that they hadn't done iRacing before, who have signed up, who have said that they signed up because of mine.
Yeah, actually, how I got onto iRacing, because I was following Radman on YouTube. He got on, and then from his videos, I started seeing more and more recommended videos. Then I came across yours, and kind of got, and kind of saw all the leagues on there, and that's what made me want to join, was seeing that, like, yes, there is this chaos of the official races, but you have these leagues that are organized. There's points. There can be money involved as well. That's ideally what made me want to get on it and be a part of it.
It's fun. iRacing is
It is a lot of fun.
iRacing is the great equalizer. It puts all the drivers in equal equipment. You can't buy a faster car, and it allows us to compete. And you know what? It's driver speed that wins these races ultimately.
Exactly.
Obviously some luck comes into play, but on the average, those guys who have 6,000-7,000 I ratings, they've earned those. If it's cool. It is the great equalizer. It's a lot of fun. As much as I posted a tweet recently. I think it was true statements that we all say that, while definitely true, we all know are also completely false. And it was I was trying to get a thread going with it, but what I said was, iRacing is just a video game, which, while true in one sense, is also, as we all know, completely false. The competition is very real. They try, even while they aren't 100% accurate to exactly what makes racing fast. I do think that there are a lot of things about how you drive a car and make it that would translate. You would have to learn some details about it that are different, but in the context of what it is, the racing and the competition is very much real. And the reason why we enjoy it so much, why it's so much fun, why it's rewarding, why we keep coming back, is because we take it seriously. And it's the people who take
Yep.
it seriously that push us to do better and to compete. That's what makes it fun. Furtive Live bought a turbo for his car and hasn't lost since. I need that upgrade, Furtive. I'm struggling with these anemic 550 horsepower engines. All right, man, this has been fun. Looking forward to next week.
Yeah.
Who we got next week? Let me be an unprofessional streamer and pull up my phone on stream here, and because I've got it in a Google Drive document. Next week, Amsteriga is going to be our guest. So, Dylan, thank you very much. This has been a pleasure. Thank you to everyone in chat. Big thank you to X-Wolf. My goodness, with the bits. Let me see if we can get a credit roll here or not. Last time I tried to do this at the end of a one of these, it didn't work, and I wasn't sure why. Let's see. Yep, it's working this time. So
There we go.
credits, thank you to X-Wolf, Warren D53, and USA Firearms for the bits. Very much appreciated. Thanks to my moderators for hanging out in chat. And honestly, thank you for everyone who's hanging out. Bill K. Ott, Dylan, Jaron. Thank you to everyone who's hanging out in chat for making the moderator's job super easy tonight.
What's up?
Thanks to new followers, Grim Knight, Cringe Carnival, HVAR Sided, Zach Campbell, Leader Slim Shady. Thanks to my subs and resubs, Shaben and Demi OUS. You guys are awesome. This has been a pleasure. Tomorrow night, Podium Esports Elite Series at the Milwaukee Mile. I got to go run some practice for that. And next week we'll be doing one of these with Amsteriga. Thank you guys very much. Peace out.